Why did every alarm on the base scream at once, yet the dogs refused to move? At 14:32 hours, Fort Braxton stopped breathing. Not figuratively, literally. Conversations died mid-sentence. Boots froze mid-step. A half-lifted coffee cup hovered in the air as if gravity itself had hesitated. Then the voice came. Evacuate immediately. All personnel clear the area within 15 minutes. It wasn't the message that scared people. It was who delivered it. General Solomon Webb, 5 stars, 4 decades of service, a man whose orders were treated like laws of nature. When he spoke, the base obeyed. Except the dogs. At the K-9 training yard, 30 elite military working dogs, Belgian Malinois and German Shepherds trained for combat zones most maps refused to label, stood perfectly still. Handlers shouted commands, leashes tightened, boots dug into concrete. Nothing. 30 animals, bred for obedience and precision, ignored every handler like they no longer existed. And then slowly, as if guided by a single thought, they turned. All 30. Their attention fixed on one place. On one woman. She stood near the veterinary clinic entrance, beside a rolling cart of medical supplies. Gray hair pulled into a tight bun, hands rough with years of cleaning chemicals and disinfectant, a faded blue uniform that marked her as invisible. Willow Thornton, 52 years old, official title, veterinary assistant, unofficial title, the woman everyone ignored. She set down a roll of gauze. Carefully, quietly. 30 dogs lay down at once. Not randomly, not chaotically. They formed a perfect circle around her. A living wall of muscle and teeth. Protection. Captain Derek Hollis felt his stomach drop. "What did you do to my dogs?" he barked, storming across the yard. He was loud, confident, decorated, the kind of man used to being obeyed. Willow didn't answer. Didn't flinch. Didn't look impressed. She simply stood there as 30 of the most dangerous animals on the base guarded her like she was the last thing worth protecting. General Webb stepped off the command platform, his boots striking the concrete with deliberate weight. In 40 years he had seen dogs panic, disobey, break. He had never seen this. "What," he murmured almost to himself, "is happening?" No one had an answer. They only had questions. And somewhere deep inside, a growing unease. Because the dogs weren't afraid. They weren't confused. They were alert. And loyal. That morning had begun like every other for Willow Thornton. She arrived before dawn, cleaned surgical tables, sterilized instruments, checked supply counts that no one else wanted to bother with. She passed Kennel 7, where Reaper, an aggressive Malinois feared by every handler, usually hurled himself at the gate. Today he lay down, rolled onto his side, exposed his throat. No one noticed. They never did. Captain Hollis arrived later, bringing his usual arrogance with him like a second uniform. "Move," he snapped as he brushed past Willow in the hallway. Not a request, a command. She stepped aside. A folder slipped from his hand, papers scattered across the freshly mopped floor. Willow knelt to gather them. Her eyes flicked once, doorways, cameras, exits. 2 seconds. Automatic. No one noticed that either. Master Sergeant Amber Voss made sure people noticed Willow for the wrong reasons. "Oh, that's just our facility's help," she laughed to a group of officers. "Harmless. Couldn't tell a combat dog from a house pet." Laughter followed. Willow kept working. When 2 dogs lunged toward each other moments later, she stepped between them without hesitation. Perfect angle, perfect timing. The fight ended before it began. The handlers congratulated themselves. Only one person saw her. Corporal Levi Martinez. 24, new to the base, still learning who mattered and who didn't. And something about Willow didn't fit. She moved like someone trained not to waste motion, like someone who knew where everyone was without looking. When their eyes met, hers were old, not tired, experienced. Then the moment passed. She was invisible again. By early afternoon, Sergeant Caleb Reeves was testing electronic response equipment near the kennels. Storm and anxious Malinois whined and paced. Willow passed by with a mop bucket. She made a small motion with her hand. Barely noticeable. Storm lay down. Calm. Caleb smiled at his tablet, convinced his tech had worked. Levi felt a chill crawl up his spine. 3 minutes later, Willow paused in the supply room doorway. "They know," she said softly. Dr. Iris Chin looked up. "Know what?" Willow didn't answer. The alarms began. Evacuation procedures triggered like clockwork. Handlers tried to move the dogs. They refused. Rex the Alpha planted his feet and growled. Not aggression. Warning. 2 military police officers approached Willow to escort her out. They didn't make it 3 steps. 30 dogs rose. Teeth bared. A wall of controlled violence. The MPs backed away pale. General Webb arrived just in time to witness the impossible. "What's your name?" he asked her. "Willow Thornton, sir." "These dogs seem to disagree with your job description." She said nothing. Dr. Chen stepped forward, voice shaking. "Sir, there's something you should know." The words Generation 3 protocol slipped into the air. General Webb went still. 20 minutes. A security breach. An unidentified explosive device. Unknown location. Then Willow spoke again. "They smelled it," she said, "before your sensors did." Silence. "Where?" Webb asked. She looked toward the weapons depot. "It's already active." When they reached the depot, the dogs had already found it. A nondescript crate. Minutes on the timer. Bomb squad was too far. "Everyone out," Webb ordered. Willow stepped forward. "I need to do this." "You're a civilian." "No," she said quietly, "that was just the disguise." Her hands moved with calm precision. The dogs stayed with her. They didn't retreat. They never did. The countdown stopped with seconds to spare. Clear. Later, as the base exhaled and the threat was contained, General Webb finally asked the question he'd been circling all day. "If the shepherd died 20 years ago," he said softly, "why are her dogs still following her?" Willow didn't answer right away. She looked at the dogs, at the base, at the life she had hidden inside for 3 years. Because sometimes survival means silence. And sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Why did the general hesitate before ordering her arrest? Like some instinct warned him it was already too late. The command center hummed with noise, but inside General Webb's head there was only one sound. Memory. Screens flashed satellite feeds. Officers spoke in clipped urgency. Protocols stacked on top of protocols. Yet his eyes kept drifting back to the glass wall overlooking the K9 yard, where 30 dogs sat in disciplined silence around a woman who, on paper, did not matter. He had read classified briefings his entire adult life. He had buried units, erased names, signed letters that began with "We regret to inform you." And still, nothing had unsettled him like this. "Sir," Lieutenant Colonel Fiona Pierce said carefully, "we need to resolve the civilian situation. Evacuation protocol." "Stand by," Webb replied. He watched Willow Thornton kneel and check Rex's paw, her movements gentle, familiar. The dog leaned into her touch like a child seeking reassurance. Dogs did not fake trust. That truth sat heavy in his chest. "Sergeant Reeves," Webb said without looking away, "what did you find?" Caleb swallowed. Generation 3 Protocol, K9 Special Operations Unit, established 1998. Founder designation The Shepherd. Status KIA Kandahar, 2003. A pause. Confirmed deceased. The words felt wrong even as he said them. Webb turned slowly. "Then why," he asked quietly, "are her dogs still alive?" No one answered. Outside, Willow rose to her feet. The dogs adjusted instantly, not anxiously but with purpose, forming lanes, angles, awareness zones. They were guarding her and watching everything else. Dr. Iris Chen stood beside Willow, hands clasped tightly. "I should have said something sooner," she whispered. Willow didn't look at her. "You did the right thing." "How can you say that?" "Because you weren't sure," Willow replied. "Certainty gets people killed." Iris felt tears sting her eyes. "My father talked about you." Willow closed her eyes for half a second. "He shouldn't have," she said, "but I'm glad he did." The wind shifted. Rex's ears flicked east. Willow felt it before anyone spoke. "Someone's still here," she murmured. Inside the command center, alarms flared again. "Sir," a security officer shouted, "we've got movement near the communications building. Unauthorized presence. Thermal signature doesn't match evacuation logs." Webb snapped upright. "Lock it down." The dogs reacted before the order finished. 10 broke formation and sprinted. No command. No hesitation. Just instinct sharpened by decades of trust. Willow exhaled slowly. "They've found him," she said. Bradley Chen surrendered without resistance. He was shaking, crying, asking the same question over and over as MPs cuffed him. How did they know? The sensors didn't trip, the masking was perfect. The dog stood inches away, silent, unblinking. They didn't need to bare their teeth. Fear had already done the work. When Webb watched the suspect led away, something clicked into place. This wasn't coincidence. This was design. That evening, after the base settled into uneasy calm, Webb requested a private room. No aides. No recorders. Just him, Willow, and Dr. Chen. "You were supposed to be dead," Webb said finally. "Yes." "Why aren't you?" Willow rested her hands on the table, scarred hands, steady hands. "Because dying was the safest option." Iris sucked in a breath. "Kandahar wasn't an ambush," Willow continued. "It was an execution." Webb leaned forward. "By who?" "Someone inside," Willow said. "Someone who knew our routes, our signals, our dogs." She paused. "They neutralized the team first, tried to neutralize me second." "You survived." "Barely." She looked at her hands. "I woke up under rubble with 3 broken ribs and no dogs. That hurt more than the bullets." Silence stretched. "I let them believe I was dead," she went on, "because if they thought I was gone, they'd stop hunting me." "In Ghost Pack?" Webb asked. Her jaw tightened. "They scattered my dogs, shut down the program, or so they thought." "But not all of them," Iris whispered. "No," Willow said. "Some bloodlines survived, some handlers remembered." She met Webb's gaze. "And someone has been trying to steal it ever since." Across the base, Captain Derek Hollis sat alone in his office, staring at his hands. 15 years of experience. And he had missed everything. He replayed the moment she had set down the gauze. The explanation wasn't technique. It was humility. He walked to the yard. Stopped 10 feet away. "I was wrong," he said aloud. 30 dogs looked at him. Only one responded. "Rex." The big Malinois stepped forward, not aggressively, not submissively. "Evaluating." Willow's voice carried from behind him. They don't forgive arrogance easily. Derek swallowed. I don't expect forgiveness. She studied him. That's a start. Later, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples and golds, Corporal Levi Martinez stood by the kennel fence. The dogs watched him now. Not casually explained. Intentionally. Willow approached quietly. They're curious about you, she said. Why? Levi asked. Because you noticed, she replied, and you didn't look away. He hesitated. What happens now? She followed his gaze to the dogs. Now, she said, people with power will want answers, and people without conscience will want silence. That sounds dangerous. Yes. She met his eyes. That's why I hid. Levi frowned. Then why stop hiding now? Willow considered the question. Because they tried to kill 200 people today, she said, and because these dogs refused to abandon what mattered. She knelt and rested a hand on Rex's head. Sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. Inside the command center, Webb made a call that would ripple far beyond Fort Braxton. Unseal it, he said, all of it. There was a pause on the other end. Are you certain? Yes, Webb replied. The shepherd is alive. That night, Willow sat alone on a bench near the yard. The dogs lay around her, breathing slow content. Her shoulders sagged. For the first time since the alarms, acknowledging the weight. She had wanted peace. Instead, she had found purpose again. And purpose was heavier. She touched the old dog tags in her pocket. Not lost. Not forgotten. Just waiting. In the darkness, Willow whispered something only the dogs heard. We don't get to choose when the fight finds us. Rex rested his head on her knee. But we choose how we stand. And the dog stayed. Because dignity doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand recognition. It simply refuses to move when leaving would be easier. Why did the dogs tense the moment the first classified file appeared on the screen, like they recognized a threat no one else could see? The room was sealed. No windows, no insignias, just concrete walls and a long table polished by decades of difficult conversations. General Webb stood at the head, hands braced against the surface, eyes fixed on the projected file that had finally been unsealed after 20 years of silence. Ghost Pack status, TERMINATD. The word felt like a lie even as it glowed on the screen. Willow sat to his right, back straight, hands folded. She wore the same faded blue uniform she'd worn while mopping floors, and somehow it felt more honest than any rank she'd ever held. Across from her, Fiona Pierce studied the data with surgical precision. Dr. Iris Chen sat rigid, jaw tight, reading between every line. Outside the room, 30 dogs waited. Not by accident. By instinct. They erased everything, Webb said quietly. Training protocols, handler names, breeding logs. They tried, Willow replied, but dogs remember differently than people. She closed her eyes briefly. They remember in scent, in pattern, in absence. Webb nodded once. The sabotage today, it fits. Yes, Willow said. It confirms something I've suspected for years. She inhaled slowly. Someone didn't just want Ghost Pack gone. They wanted it copied. Silence followed. That's impossible, Fiona said. The program was unique, classified beyond. And profitable, Willow interrupted softly. That landed. You don't dismantle something that effective, she continued. You steal it, then you bury the original so no one can compare. Iris felt sick. You think there's another unit. I think there's an imitation, Willow said. And imitations are dangerous. They copy technique, not ethics. Webb's voice hardened. Who had access? Willow leaned forward. Someone high enough to move dogs without records. Someone patient. someone willing to wait decades. She paused. Someone who knows how loyalty works and how to break it. In the holding yard, Rex stood suddenly. Every dog followed. Levi Martinez felt it in his bones before he understood it. "What's wrong?" he whispered. The dogs didn't answer. They stared toward the administrative wing. Levi swallowed and ran. The first interrogation of Bradley Chen began at 19:40 hours. He was pale, hollow-eyed, still convinced the system had failed him. It hadn't. Willow stood just outside the room, dogs positioned along the corridor, not threatening. Present. Chen's pulse spiked the moment Rex sat down. Willow didn't speak. She didn't need to. Fear has a scent. And the dogs breathed it in. "You didn't act alone," Webb said calmly from inside. "Who gave you the device?" Chen laughed weakly. "You think I'd talk?" Rex's ears twitched. Chen's voice cracked. "They promised me protection," he blurted. "A future, said the dogs would never touch me." Willow opened the door. "They lied," she said quietly. Chen's eyes widened. "You," he whispered, "you're dead." "No," she replied, "I'm just done hiding." His breath hitched. "They said you were a myth." She stepped closer. "Who is they?" He shook his head violently. "You don't understand. This goes higher than you, higher than him." Rex stood. Chen sobbed. "A procurement liaison," he gasped. "Contractor oversight, the name on the payments." He stopped breathing. The dogs growled. A medic rushed in. Too late. A microcapsule. Poison. Willow closed her eyes. "They planned for failure," she said, "just not this fast." Webb swore under his breath. "Whoever we're dealing with," Fiona said, "they're still ahead of us." Willow opened her eyes. Not for long. Later that night, Willow walked the perimeter alone. The dogs followed at a distance. She didn't stop them. Her reflection flickered in the floodlights, older, quieter, heavier with memory. Levi jogged to catch up. "You knew he wouldn't talk," he said. "I knew he'd try not to," she answered. "That doesn't bother you?" She considered the question. "It does," she said. "It just doesn't stop me." Levi hesitated. "Why me?" She stopped walking. Turned. "Because when everyone else saw a janitor," she said, "you saw a person." He shifted uncomfortably. "That matters to the dogs, and it matters to me." She studied him. "You don't crave power," she continued. "You observe, you listen, you doubt yourself. That doesn't sound like leadership. It's the only kind worth trusting." The dogs closed in around them, not aggressively, protectively. Levi felt it. The weight. The expectation. "I don't know if I'm ready," he admitted. Willow nodded. "I wasn't either." In the command center, Webb stared at a new report. Unauthorized K-9 movements, overseas, unregistered compounds. A pattern. A map forming. "This isn't just theft," he murmured. "It's replication." "Yes," Willow said, "and eventually replacement." Webb looked at her. "They're going to come for you again." She didn't deny it. "I never stopped being a target," she said. "I just stopped being worth the effort. Until today." She met his gaze. "Until the dogs chose me." Near midnight, Willow stood before the kennels. She raised her hand. A subtle signal. The dogs responded instantly. She felt the familiar ache in her chest, the one that came with responsibility. With love. With loss. "I won't lose you again," she whispered. Rex pressed his head into her side. For the first time in 20 years, she allowed herself a dangerous thought. Hope. Because sometimes the hardest battles aren't fought with weapons. They're fought by standing still, by refusing to disappear, by letting the truth catch up. And when it does, you stand with it. Why did Willow hesitate when General Webb slid the command badge across the table, like accepting it would cost her something she wasn't sure she could afford? The room was quieter than it should have been. Not silent, controlled. The kind of quiet that comes when everyone knows a line is about to be crossed, and no one is pretending otherwise. The badge lay between them, matte black, no insignia visible unless activated, temporary authority layered with permissions that hadn't existed when Willow Thornton was last in uniform. She stared at it. For a moment, just one, she wanted to push it back. "I didn't come here to lead," she said. General Webb didn't move. "You came here because you couldn't ignore what was happening." "That's not the same thing." "No," he agreed, "it's worse." Around the table, no one interrupted. Fiona Pierce watched with a strategist's patience. Iris Chen's hands were clenched so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Levi stood near the door, deliberately out of the way, trying not to feel like history was unfolding in front of him. Outside, 30 dogs waited, still listening. "They will follow you whether you take that badge or not," Webb continued. "But if you don't, others will try to control them." Willow exhaled slowly. That was the truth she'd been avoiding. Power always rushed to fill a vacuum, and when it did, it rarely asked permission. She reached out. Didn't take the badge yet. Just touched it. Her fingers trembled. "You know what command costs," she said quietly. "You know what it takes from you." Webb nodded. "That's why I trust you with it." That landed harder than any rank ever had. She picked it up. The dogs outside shifted. Not excited. Ready. The briefing room was full for the first time since the evacuation. No speeches, no applause. Just faces, some skeptical, some relieved, some openly afraid. Willow stood at the front. No podium. She didn't want distance. "What happened yesterday wasn't an anomaly," she began. "It was a test." A ripple moved through the room. They were probing response times, chain of command confusion, K9 behavioral overrides. Someone scoffed softly. Willow's eyes cut toward the sound. "You think because you didn't see gunfire it wasn't an attack," she said. "That's how they win." Silence. "They are rebuilding Ghost Pack without the constraints that kept it humane," she continued. "They are using our methods without our rules, and they are willing to sacrifice people and animals to refine it." A hand rose. "With respect, ma'am, why you?" Willow didn't flinch. "Because I failed once," she said, "and I lived with it." That honesty hit harder than authority. She activated the badge. The screen behind her lit up. Maps, data, movement logs. "We don't chase them," she said. "We make them uncomfortable, we force mistakes, we let the dogs lead." A murmur spread. "Dogs don't lead operations," someone muttered. Willow tilted her head. "No," she said, "they reveal them." The first field deployment was small by design. No helicopters, no spectacle. Just Willow, Levi, 2 handlers and 6 dogs. Remote industrial site, decommissioned, supposedly empty. Willow stood at the perimeter fence, night air cold against her face. Her chest tightened. This was the part she hated. The waiting. The quiet before choices had consequences. Levi glanced at her. "You okay?" She considered lying. Then didn't. "No," she said, "but I'm here." He nodded. That was enough. She gave a hand signal. The dogs moved. Fluid, efficient, silent. Rex stopped first. Sat. Ears forward. Willow felt the shift before she saw it. Something's wrong, she murmured. A low vibration hummed through the ground. Generators. Active. Site was supposed to be cold, Levi whispered. It is, Willow said. That's the problem. They moved in. Too clean. Too quiet. No guards, no cameras. A trap, but not the obvious kind. Inside the main structure, the dogs slowed. Storm refused to cross the threshold. Whined. Willow knelt. What is it? Levi asked. They don't smell fear, she said. They smell absence. Her pulse spiked. Empty rooms don't feel empty to dogs, she continued. This one does. She stood. We pull back. The order surprised everyone, including herself. A second later, the floor collapsed. Concrete gave way where they would have been standing. Dust filled the air. Silence followed. Levi stared at the gap. If we'd taken 2 more steps, we wouldn't be having this conversation, Willow said. Her legs shook. She didn't hide it. The dogs gathered around her. Not triumphant. Concerned. She rested her hands on their backs. Grounded herself. That's on me, she said quietly. No, Levi replied. That's leadership. She looked at him. Leadership still felt like a bruise. Back at the base, the fallout was immediate. You aborted without confirmation, Fiona said in private. Some will say that's weakness. They can say it, Willow replied. They're alive to do it. Fiona studied her. You're different from before. Willow smiled faintly. Before I thought command meant certainty. And now I know it means accountability. That night Willow couldn't sleep. She sat in the yard, knees drawn up, watching the dogs rest. They trusted her. That terrified her more than any enemy. Rex approached and sat beside her. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I don't want to break you, she whispered. He breathed steadily. Present. Patient. She remembered Kandahar. The smoke, the shouting, the moment she'd chosen wrong because she'd wanted to be right. She swallowed. I won't do that again. The dogs shifted closer, as if agreeing. In a secure office miles away, a man watched the footage from the collapsed floor. He smiled thinly. She's cautious now, he said. That's new. A voice on the line replied, Does that change the timeline? No, the man said. It accelerates it. He leaned back. Prepare phase 3. Willow felt it the next morning. That familiar pressure. Like the air before a storm. She stood before the team. We're being watched, she said. Not to scare us, to measure us. Levi raised a hand. Then what do we do? Willow looked at the dogs. Then back at him. We let them think we're afraid, she said. A pause. And then we show them what quiet resolve looks like. Because strength doesn't always charge forward. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it listens. And sometimes it chooses not to step where the ground looks solid but is. Why did Willow feel relief instead of fear when the first dog collapsed, like some part of her had been waiting for the choice that followed? The scream came from Kennel 9. Sharp human wrong. Willow was on her feet before the alarm finished sounding, boots slapping against concrete as she ran toward the sound. The dogs rose around her in a wave. No commands, no chaos, just motion bound by purpose. Rex reached the kennel first. Inside, Storm lay on his side, muscles locked, breath shallow, eyes wide with confusion. Foam traced the edge of his mouth. Poison. Willow dropped to her knees. Clear the area, she said, voice steady in a way that felt almost inhuman. No one touches anything. Handlers froze. Levi knelt beside her. Can you? Yes, she said, but I need space. She slid gloves on with hands that didn't shake until they were already inside the dog's mouth, checking airway, scenting the air like the dogs did. She smelled it. Synthetic clean, designed not to linger. "They've breached the perimeter," she said softly. The dogs around them growled, not loud, not wild. Focused. Iris Chen arrived seconds later with the med kit. "What is it?" "A test," Willow replied, "of loyalty." Storm convulsed. Willow injected the counteragent without hesitation. "Stay with me," she murmured, forehead pressed to Storm's. "You're not done yet." Minutes stretched. Storm's breathing slowed, then steadied. The yard exhaled. But Willow didn't. Because this wasn't the real attack. This was bait. The message came an hour later. Encrypted, routed through dead servers and forgotten channels. Only one name in the header. The Keeper. Willow stared at the screen. Her chest tightened, not with fear but recognition. "He knows you," Fiona said quietly. "Yes," Willow replied. "He helped build me." The room went still. "He was logistics," Willow continued. "Supply chains, transfers, oversight no one questioned." "Why reveal himself now?" Webb asked. "Because he's tired of waiting," Willow said, "and because herding a dog is the fastest way to make me move." She looked at the message again. "You taught them to choose. Let's see if you still can." Coordinates followed. Civilian infrastructure. A water treatment facility. Webb swore, "If he contaminates." "He won't," Willow said. "That's not his style." "How do you know?" "Because he wants me there." The team assembled in silence. This wasn't strategy. It was a confrontation. Levi checked his gear with deliberate calm. "What's the plan?" Willow met his eyes. "There isn't one that ends cleanly." She gestured to the dogs. "They go first, always." The convoy moved under cover of darkness. No sirens. No announcements. At the facility perimeter, the dogs stopped. Sat. Refused to move. Willow felt the ground hum faintly beneath her boots. "Trip sensors," she murmured. "Layered, adaptive." She closed her eyes briefly. "They're learning from us," Levi said. "Yes," Willow replied, "but they don't understand us." She stepped forward alone. The dogs whined. Rex stood blocking her path. She knelt and pressed her forehead to his. "I know," she whispered, "but this part is mine." She rose and crossed the threshold. Nothing happened. She took another step. Still nothing. On the third, the voice came through the loudspeaker. "You always were stubborn, Shepherd." Willow stopped. "You poisoned a dog," she said. "That's how I know you've lost." A chuckle echoed. "No, that's how you know I'm serious." Lights flickered on inside the facility. He stood behind glass, older, composed, eyes sharp with familiar contempt. "The Keeper." "Walk away," Willow said. "End this." He smiled. "You walked away first." She felt the weight then. Not anger. Grief. "You could have protected them," she said. "Instead, you sold them." "They're assets," he replied. "So are you." She shook her head. "That's the difference." He gestured. A timer lit up behind him. 10 minutes. "Choose," he said. "Deactivate the system manually, alone, or let the dogs trigger the failsafes and flood the sector." Levi swore softly behind her. "You knew I'd never risk them," Willow said. "Exactly," the Keeper replied. "That's your weakness." She turned toward the dogs. They watched her. Waiting. Trusting. Her chest burned. She turned back. "I'll go," she said. Levi stepped forward. "No." Willow didn't look at him. "If I don't," she said, "he wins twice." She moved. The door sealed behind her. Inside, the air was sterile. Quiet. The keeper watched from the control room. "You taught them to choose," he said, "but you never taught yourself." Willow reached the console. Wires exposed. Manual override required sustained pressure. 6 minutes. She braced herself. Pain flared as current surged. She bit down, refusing to scream. Outside, the dogs paced. Rex barked once, then sat, waiting. Levi watched the timer bleed down, helpless. "Come on," he whispered. Inside, Willow's vision blurred. Memory surfaced. Kandahar. The moment she'd ordered the wrong retreat. The dogs she'd lost because she wanted to be certain. Not this time. She held. The system powered down. Lights died. The keeper's smile vanished. "You'll never outrun this," he snarled. "I'm not running," Willow gasped. "I'm ending it." Security flooded in. He was gone by the time they reached the control room. Slipped away. But the facility was safe. The dogs rushed in the moment the doors opened. They surrounded Willow as she collapsed. Breathing. Alive. Rex pressed his head to her chest. She laughed weakly. "I chose you," she whispered. Later in the infirmary, Webb stood at her bedside. "You could have died." "Yes," Willow replied, "but they would have lived." He nodded slowly. "You passed the test." She looked at him. It was never his to give. Outside, the dogs waited. Unmoved. Unbroken. Because strength isn't measured by what you sacrifice. It's measured by who you refuse to sacrifice. Why did the dogs lie down at the gate when the last order finally came? Like they already knew this wasn't the end, only the quiet after. The sun hadn't risen yet. That mattered to Willow. Endings felt truer before daylight interfered, before the world rushed in to explain things away. She stood at the edge of Fort Braxton as the gate arms lifted slowly, metal groaning in protest. 30 dogs lay across the concrete in a loose formation, bodies relaxed but alert, eyes tracking every movement. They hadn't been commanded to stay. They chose to. General Webb joined her, hands clasped behind his back. He looked older than he had a week ago, less armored by certainty. "The keeper vanished," he said, "but not without leaving fingerprints." Willow nodded. He wanted credit, men like that always do. "He left enough to dismantle the network," Webb continued. "Black sites, shell programs, unauthorized breeding operations." She closed her eyes briefly. "So the dogs get to rest." "For now," Webb said, "and you?" She didn't answer immediately. Rest felt unfamiliar. The inquiry was brutal. Public enough to matter, private enough to protect the right people. Willow testified without embellishment, without bitterness. She talked about mistakes, about silence, about why she disappeared instead of fighting. "Because I didn't trust myself with command," she said calmly, "and because the cost of being wrong felt higher than the cost of being gone." That honesty shifted something in the room. They expected heroics. They got accountability. When the final panel member asked what she wanted in return for her service, Willow paused. "I want the dogs reassigned as units," she said, "not assets, with handlers trained for partnership, not control." A murmur followed. "And I want the program renamed," she added. "To what?" someone asked. She thought of the way Rex watched her, of Storm breathing again, of 30 animals who refused to leave. "Quiet guard," she said, "because they don't announce their strength." The vote passed. Unanimously. Levi found her in the yard later that day. She was sitting on the ground, back against the fence, shoes off, letting the dogs do what they wanted. Most chose to stay close. "They offered me a slot," Levi said, "training track handler leadership." She smiled. You'll be good. I don't know if I want command, he admitted. She looked up at him. Good, she said. That means you're ready. He hesitated. What about you? She glanced at the dogs. I've spent most of my life being defined by what I protected, she said. Now I want to see who I am without constant threat. Levi nodded slowly. You'll still be around. She smiled faintly. I don't think they'd let me leave. Rex chose that moment to rest his head on her foot, as if to prove the point. The official ceremony was small. No medals, no speeches broadcast across the base. Just a quiet acknowledgement. General Webb handed Willow a folded flag. For service rendered, he said, and for service refused. She accepted it. That mattered more. As she walked away, she felt eyes on her, not admiration. Understanding. Weeks passed. The dogs settled into new routines. Handlers learned to listen more than they spoke. Mistakes still happened, but fewer. Better. Willow took a small house near the edge of town. Nothing remarkable. A garden that needed work. A porch that caught the evening light just right. The dogs visited. Not all at once, but often. She never asked why. One evening, as the sky turned soft with color, Willow sat on the porch steps, tea cooling in her hands. She thought about Kandahar, about the weight she'd carried since. It felt lighter now. Not gone, but integrated. Purpose without punishment. Rex lay beside her, older now, breathing slow. You know, she murmured, I used to think dignity was about being seen. Rex flicked an ear. Turns out, she continued, it's about staying when leaving would be easier. The wind moved through the yard. Quiet. Present. Far away, files were being closed. Names erased. Networks dismantled. But something else was beginning. A doctrine written without bravado. Without spectacle. Built on trust. And choice. On the morning Willow left Fort Braxton for the last time, she didn't look back. She didn't need to. The dogs lay at the gate again. Watching. Guarding. Not a person. A principle. That loyalty isn't obedience. That strength doesn't shout. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to abandon what cannot defend itself. And walk forward anyway. Because dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts.